Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, a tale of two silver-headed dudes. One who wished for the old days of Hollywood, the other who embraced the new ways. And that made all the difference. Yes, Johnny Knoxville, who headed up an aggressive ad campaign, including making regular appearances with the WWE. I even saw him trending with those appearances one night. He actually brought in younger fans to his brand, with 67% of Jackass Forever's audience 18 to 34. That's incredible, considering the last episode of Jackass aired 20 years ago, before some of those people were even born. And the most recent movie was about 10 years ago. And so here's Johnny with the number one movie of the weekend. And sure, 23.5 is low for the franchise, but we're not only still in a pandemic, this is one of the low points. And yet still Paramount is able to deliver another number one debut during these difficult times. And what makes Jackass Forever particularly impressive is that one would think this would be a prime candidate for streaming on Paramount Plus. As the trades are pointing out, Paramount just recently dumped all their top executives to get ones that focus on digital, like Warner Media had done with Jason Kilar. But still, this was a theaters-only release. And it will get to Paramount Plus eventually. But now it has the reputation of a hot movie. That's the way this is supposed to all work. Box office headlines from the theatrical release are the engine that drive these movies in the ancillary market. The question is, does the ancillary market include streaming, or is streaming a different market? I think it depends on the release strategy, quite frankly. Now, on the flip side, we have Mr. Roland Emmerich, the latest filmmaker to complain about Marvel movies, but to make sure he got the most people possible to roll their eyes, he also threw DC and Star Wars under the bus as well. Emmerich claims these movies are sucking all the originality out of Hollywood. But Mr. Emmerich, what's so original about Moonfall? In fact, it could be argued that Emmerich does the same thing so often that his latest copy of Independence Day, the movie that put him on the map, is so diluted it's barely discernible as a movie. And while in the past Emmerich could claim he made popcorn picks that critics simply couldn't appreciate, Moonfall's C+ cinema score and paltry $10 million debut robs him of even that excuse. And I even liked 2012, by the way. I mean, I know that these can be a guilty pleasure, but this wasn't it. Do comic book movies dominate the market? Yes, they do. They do. Before 2008, which was the birth of the MCU and Nolan's creation of the prestige comic book movie, what a year! It's like, 1939, the other famous year in Hollywood, I believe. Now, there was more variety in the domestic top 10 before 2008. There was, and Emmerich himself could often get a movie into the domestic top 10. I mean, there's inflation to account for, but those movies weren't making what movies are making today. But then, even in 2008, The Dark Knight and Iron Man were the top two domestic movies of the year, and The Dark Knight was the top global film by far. Interestingly, Iron Man was pretty far behind it that year. It's interesting. And when DC is good, it's really good. And Hollywood never looked back. Audiences love VFX-driven blockbusters. But movies have always been about spectacle. This is not new. And we're even talking about the biggest non-comic booky movies of the past and Oscar contenders. Gone with the Wind, Titanic. Those movies are spectacles. Even The Sound of Music had incredible cinematography and musical numbers. Mary Poppins, a big leader in leaps and bounds and revolutionary VFX that Walt Disney did there, bringing animation qualities to live action. And then also, these days need spectacle more than ever to compete with streaming services that offer very high quality for very low prices, especially compared to the price of a movie ticket. You can get a whole month of entertainment for the cost of just 2 to 3 hours at the multiplex, which is why theaters themselves are even trying subscription services. Now, I don't see Emmerich trashing streaming services, but that's probably because he feels he can still get a gig with them, whereas Marvel, DC, and Star Wars would never consider him anyway. I can understand where Scorsese is coming from because he makes a different type of movie. But as I recently discussed in my summer movies 2022 update, awards movies are just, the landscape is changing, and I think more people will see awards contenders at home than they do in a theater, and that's fine with considering the size of screens people are getting. And I noted The Power of the Dog and Being the Ricardos, 2 awards frontrunners this year, as films that most people saw at home, and still have very much respect for those movies. Doesn't change how you feel about them, right? At least Emmerich came in second. That would have been really embarrassing if he'd come in third, because he just narrowly, and the numbers might change by tomorrow when the final numbers come in, but it seems he narrowly edged out No Way Home in its 8th weekend. And while No Way Home is down to single digits domestically now, it is just about 10 million away from surpassing Avatar on the domestic all-time chart to get that number 3 spot. And it could maybe do it before Tom Holland and Sony return with Uncharted on February 18th. It could do it! That's incredible. We'll see what snarky things James Cameron has to say if it does. I mean, it's technically kind of a Disney, in-house movie, but it is under the Sony banner, and James Cameron just can't resist, it seems. But he should really be focused on making sure that Avatar 2 delivers rather than destroys the brand that new parent company Disney, that's also Disney, is so heavily invested in. So see, even with original movies, Avatar was very original, right, and a huge hit. The goal for them is to become the big ongoing franchises that everyone else will then complain about, right? Everyone says everyone loves a winner, but sometimes everyone hates a winner, and that's just the name of the game. Kevin Feige don't care. Kevin Feige hasn't really responded to any of this criticism because he's just making so much money. All right, anyway. As for the rest of the top 10, Scream 5 actually had the best hold yet. Its best hold yet in its 4th weekend, as of course they just made it official with Scream 6. While Sing 2, look at that. That's not actually its best hold. Its best hold was its 2nd weekend with about a 10% drop. But it continues to be the most successful family film of 2021 theatrically. Now let's head over to streaming, starting with Nielsen, per usual. For the first full week of 2022, which, by the way, is the 10-year anniversary of Netflix creating its own programming, because they saw the writing on the wall as all the studios started taking their evergreen stuff away. Netflix dominates originals. It continues to dominate originals. Fans were still catching up on Cobra Kai and The Witcher this first full week in January. And look at that. Ozark is number 7, but that's pre-Season 4's release. That's people getting ready for Season 4's drop. That's incredible. We have not seen that yet. With just 2 episodes, we got to give Disney Plus some love. I think Disney Plus, once it gets enough seasons under its belt for these shows, it'll be more aggressive in the originals category. But right now, here, with just 2 episodes of Book of Boba Fett, it's moved up to 5th place. That's incredible. I can't wait to see how high it gets when the more recent legendary episodes hit the Nielsen charts, right? Now, as for movies that week, Encanto and Don't Look Up were still by far the number 1 and number 2 movies, but they did lose a little bit of steam. Still, they were far and away ahead of everything else. But what's interesting this week in the movie chart is that Netflix pushed back Disney Plus even here. Disney Plus usually dominates streaming movies because of their library of content, the Disney Vault. But Netflix got a lot of modern classics on the service that week, and people wanted to check them out. As we discussed on the stream on Thursday, Netflix and Disney Plus have the lowest amount of churn, I think because of a combination of the content available and the price point. Now, as for Netflix's own charts for last week, with movies, Mina Massoud still number 1, while Kevin James's latest movie debuted right behind him. He and Adam Sandler did The Gift That Keeps On Giving for Netflix. Then on the TV side, it looks like Ozark was not only number 1 again in its 2nd week, but it brought all 3 previous seasons into the top 10 as well. Whereas the week before when it debuted on these charts, I think only 1 other season of Ozark was in the top 10. That's fantastic. Kirsten Bell's Spoof debuted in 2nd place right behind it. Couldn't unseat Ozark though. Then finally on iTunes for this week, Nielsen's like a month behind, Netflix is 1 week behind, and iTunes, of course, is right now. Well, House of Gucci finally hit PVOD for purchase and is doing quite well, but it still can't top Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is back at number 1 because it's finally available to rent for quite a tantalizing price point, just $6. Next week's top 10 should hopefully look very different. It's been recent releases for the past couple of weeks. It's getting a little stale in the iTunes top 10. But with the Oscar nominations early Tuesday morning, which I will be covering, I hope they're good. The BAFTA nominations were nuts. There was like an alternate universe. I guess they don't want anyone to tune into the BAFTAs. But anyway, the Oscar nominations are early Tuesday, and the studios will look to use those headlines to propel their films in the ancillary market. And maybe this week or the week after, we'll see some Oscar contenders finally hit PVOD and streaming. For instance, I hope many of you are waiting for West Side Story to finally hit, and I think it might be waiting for hopefully a lot of Oscar nominations to make people maybe be interested in it finally. House of Gucci, therefore, got a bit of a head start on its fellow Oscar contenders, as Lady Gaga is sure to be nominated. She's so good in that movie. She carried that whole film. As for this coming week, it's not only Oscars on Tuesday, Oscar nominations, but then for the weekend, it's Super Bowl Sunday. It's probably going to have more, it looks like it might have more commercials than ever. This week, the trades should find out and release how many spots the studios have purchased and which studios are sitting it at. So we'll get a little bit more clues as to what's going to actually drop. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And then, of course, it's also Valentine's Day weekend because Valentine's Day is on a Monday, so a lot of people will celebrate the few days beforehand. Disney Fox looks to counter-program with a film they don't mind taking a risk with, and that's Fox's much-beleaguered Death on the Nile. That's actually excellent counter-programming for the Super Bowl, and maybe pretty good for, singles for Valentine's Day, right? That's Kenneth Branagh's sequel to his pre-Knives Out star-studded murder mystery hit. Rian Johnson kind of took over that genre, but interestingly, Murder on the Orient Express actually made more money globally than Knives Out, but Knives Out was bigger domestically. We'll see. We'll see how Death on the Nile actually performs. And then Universal hopes to cash in on the Valentine's Day crowd with romantic comedy Marry Me, which is not only going to be in theaters, but will be available on Peacock Premium as well. Universal decided not to take a risk with that movie and is one of the few remaining day-and-date releases. As for streaming, HBO Max has The Girl Before, Paramount Plus has a new season of Star Trek Discovery, while Netflix has more Disenchantment, Shonda Rhimes' Inventing Anna, which stars Ozark's Julia Garner. Interesting to see Netflix getting more invested in her. And then movie Tall Girl 2. Plus, of course, on Wednesday on Disney Plus, the now hotly anticipated season finale of The Book of Boba Fett. Although Robert Rodriguez is returning to direct, so let's check those expectations. Darn it! So I wonder if it'll finish strong or weak. It's a The Book of Boba Fett has been kind of ridiculous. All right, so anyway, but who cares? We got 2 incredible episodes out of it. So that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you think of Knoxville versus Emmerich this weekend? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos, including Oscar coverage on Tuesday, and then Super Bowl coverage on Sunday, extensive, and I'll be breaking down all the trailers on Monday. So make sure, again, you subscribe, but you can check out some more videos right now.